First of all, let me thank the authorities of Additional Skills Acquisition Program, Department of Higher Education, Government of Kerala for giving me this opportunity to interact with the vibrant student community of APJ Abdul Kalam Technology University. I hope we can right away start the presentation. So today we will be mainly discussing the content of the fourth and fifth modules of precisely fifth module of EC 202 Signals and Systems, and we will be discussing mainly Z transforms, region of convergence, inverse Z transforms, and probably their applications in connection with the frequency domain representation of discrete time systems. Probably this slide shows the outline of the presentation. We start with the mathematical representation and definition of Z transform, their properties. Then we will consider the unilateral Z transforms, which is applicable unilateral, and there are two kinds of Z transforms. One is the unilateral one-sided Z transform, where the value of the independent variable n varies from 0 to infinity. So it is right-sided Poisson sequence. For that we use unilateral Z transform, and we can also think of mathematical formulation for bilateral or more common Z transform definition, where the independent variable n runs through the time variable runs from minus infinity plus infinity. Then we will look into the inverse transform definition, how to compute Z transform, and we will finally recapitulate what we have discussed. So let us get into the relevance of transform. Why transforms are used is, I think it is known to the student community of electronics community. There are two ways by which we can represent the electrical signal. One is in the time domain, where we represent the variations of the physical quantity, electrical form or other form, and the independent variable is time, and you represent the variation in amplitude or whatever physical quantity you are monitoring as a variation of time. So that is the time domain representation. Whereas in the frequency domain representation, we can represent the signal in the frequency domain in the sense that we look at the frequency components present in the signal, and the Z transforms are applicable to discrete time systems. So we have to initiate sample, quantize, and then apply the transform. And after getting into the frequency domain application, processing, we will later on convert back to the time domain representation by taking the inverse Z transform. There are two other very close transforms. One is the discrete time Fourier transform, and you will try to find a relation between DTFT and Z transform also. We also have discrete Fourier transform. I think the other two, the latter two ones, have been discussed in previous modules of the course, EC 202, Signals and Systems. So let us look into the definition, mathematical definition of Z transforms. So it is informative to compare Z transforms with the Laplace transforms. Laplace transforms are applied to continuous time signals and systems. The same way, Z transform provides a very efficient manner to represent discrete time signals and systems, and the process discrete time signals. So we introduce a complex variable Z, which is equal to R into e raised to j omega, where R is the radiance vector and omega is the angle. We will have a pictorial representation of this right soon. So the definition of Z transform, that unilateral Z transform, is x of Z is equal to summation n running from 0 to infinity x of n into Z raised to minus n. So as I said earlier, there are two types of Z transforms. One is the unilateral Z transform, one-sided, which is either applied to the causal or anti-causal signal alone, and we have the bilateral or two-sided transform, which is applied to non-causal signals as well, frequencies. The bilateral Lissard transform is mathematically defined as x of z is equal to summation n running from minus infinity to plus infinity x of n z raised to minus n. So in the previous case, it was n is running from 0 to infinity. Here it is running from the entire gamut of possible values from negative plus infinity and can take only integer values. Now, let us look at the relation between discrete time Fourier transform and Z transform. We know that DTFT and Z transform are given by the following equations. X of omega, normally DTFT is of a sequence xn is represented as x of omega, is equal to summation n running from negative infinity to plus infinity x of n e raised to minus j omega n. Whereas in the case of x of z, which is a Z transform, we represent it as in the case of a bidirectional or bilateral Z transform, n is from minus infinity to plus infinity x of.
Ravindra sir,
yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Audio ചെറിയൊരു പ്രോബ്ലം ഉണ്ട്, അത് ഒന്ന് ക്ലിയർ ആകുന്നില്ല സാർ. മൈക്കിലൊന്ന് സംസാരിക്കാം.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
ഇപ്പൊ ക്ലിയർ ആണ്.
Thank you.
Okay, sir.
So z is a complex variable, as I said earlier. Z is represented as r into e raised to j omega. And r is the radius vector, and omega is the angle. So thus we can compare these two expressions as x of z is x of r e raised to j omega, replacing z by r e raised to j omega. So if you apply that in equation 2, we can write x of n into r into e raised to j omega, the whole raised to minus n. So it will become n running from minus infinity to plus infinity summation x of n into r raised to minus n into e raised to minus j omega. So we can easily compare equations 2 and the new equation. We can find that Z transform of xn is merely the discrete time Fourier transform of xn into r to the power minus n. So this is done to make it converge. The sequence x of n will converge x of n into r raised to minus n. If it converges, we say that Z transform x. So that is exactly the next topic we are going to discuss. So what is meant by region of convergence? So the summation x of n z raised to minus n will converge only for certain values of z, and those values of z or the values of z in the z plane is called the region of convergence. The infinite summation of bilateral z transform must converge for some values of z only. For f of z to converge, it is necessary that this absolute value of x of z, which is the absolute value of that summation equation, which is finite, it is less than infinity. So the condition is absolute value of x of n into absolute value of r raised to minus n product, and summated entire minus infinity to minus plus infinity should be finite. The convergence of x of z depends on r. The region in the z plane where x of z converges is called its region of convergence, or in short ROC, and it connects the signal xn and its z transform uniquely. So this is very important. So if we have given a transform of a signal x of n, which is x of z normally, and its region of convergence, we can obtain or revert back to the original signal. So the same transform, if we consider it in different region of convergences, will result in different signals. This point has to be noted. then its Z transform X of n is defined uniquely by the region of convergence. Here the complex variable Z is again R into e raised to j omega. Now let us look at the properties of region of convergence. As I said, the region of convergence depends on the support of the signal support of the signal X of n, means the values of n for which xn is defined. That is actually precisely the support of the signal. If the support is finite, region of convergence is very much the whole Z plane. That is property number 1. If the support is infinite, on the other hand, the region of convergence depends on whether signal is causal, anti-causal, or non-causal. Causal signals have components only of type xn minus say k, where k is a positive number. On anti-causal, it is just the reverse, x of n plus k. And non-causal means it has both positive terms and negative terms. The x-axis. In any case, region of convergence does not include any poles of the Z transform, because whenever we consider the poles of x of z, poles are those values of z at which x of z becomes infinity, or the denominator terms are equated to 0, so that the function becomes infinite. So under any case, poles do not form part of region of convergence. If no value of z, or no point in z plane for which xz converges, then the sequence xn is said to have no Z transform. This is also one possibility. In certain cases, the x of z does not converge. Typical example is a signal like a raised to n, where a is greater than 1 and n is positive. So the signal is unbounded in time domain. Then properties of region of convergence: ROC is a ring or disk in the Z plane centered at the origin. Then ROC has it does not contain any poles, which I have explained earlier, because at the poles the function becomes z becomes unbounded, so it should not contain any poles. Then x of n is an infinite duration causal sequence. Infinite duration causal sequence, which is a right-sided sequence. ROC is z greater than alpha, which is the exterior of a circle of radius alpha. Normally, this alpha will form part of, so the sequence would be normally x of n is equal to alpha raised to n, something like that. We will come to that question. Then x of n is a finite duration causal or right-sided sequence. Then R of C is the entire Z plane except at z is equal to 0. Then x of n is an infinite duration anti-causal sequence. ROC is less than beta, and it is the interior of a circle of radius beta. In the previous case, it was exterior of alpha. Then x of n is finite duration anti-causal left-sided sequence. The region of convergence is entire Z plane except z is equal to infinity. And the seventh property is, if x of n is finite duration two-sided sequence, then the ROC is the entire Z plane except z is equal to 0 and z is equal to infinity. X of n is an infinite duration two-sided sequence. It means it has samples on both sides of the imaginary axis. Then the y-axis. Then region of convergence consists of a ring in the Z plane, where absolute value of z is between alpha and beta, and bounded on the exterior and interior by pole not containing any poles. So alpha and beta refers to two pole values, and they are bounded by these two poles. Then ROC of an LTI stable system contains the unit circle. ROC must be a connected region. If x of z is rational, then ROC is bounded by poles or extend up to infinity. The signal x of n, which is the delta signal, is the only signal whose ROC is the entire Z plane. Now let us look at the complex Z plane plot, which as I have said earlier, Z is often referred to as Z is equal to R in e raised to j omega. Here omega is the angle. It's a magnitude angle representation, and here is R values taken as 1. So that's why we get the unit circle, concept of unit circle. Now let us look at the poles and zeros of the following Z transform. Suppose x of x1 of Z is written as 1 plus 2 Z raised to minus 1 plus 3 Z raised to minus 2 plus 4 Z raised to minus 3, and x of 2 as another function where there are numerator part and denominator part. Let us try to solve this. In the first case, we can write x of Z as multiplying both numerator. In this case, originally the denominator polynomial is unity. So you multiply both numerator and denominator by Z to the power 3, then we get the numerator, we get Z raised to 3 plus 2 Z raised Z squared plus 3 Z plus 4 divided by Z raised to 3, where n1 is the numerator polynomial and d1 is the denominator polynomial. So the poles are the values of Z for which d1 of Z becomes 0, and the zeros are the roots of n1 Z. That means n1 Z is equated to 0. So by this method, we can find out the poles and zeros of any rational Z transform representation. In the latter case, S2 of Z, again, it can be represented as again multiplying by Z squared on both numerator and denominator. We get into this form 1 minus Z into 1 plus 2Z the whole squared divided by 1 plus root 2Z plus Z squared. So we can again get into the numerator by denominator polynomial form. So the zeros are at Z is equal to 1, because when this is equated to 0, it becomes Z is equal to 1. And we have a multiple pole at Z is equal to minus y. Similarly, we can equate this d2Z to 0 and find out the poles of this function. Now, let us use MATLAB, which is a very popular software in signal processing applications. Suppose we have a numerator polynomial 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the polynomial which we have found earlier. The numerator is 1, 2, 3, 4. That means it is in the descending order of descending power of Z. So this becomes Z raised to 3. This is Z squared, 2 Z squared, 3 Z raised to minus 1, 4 plus 4, right? Previous aspect. So, and denominator is Z cube, and all other values are 0. So this is exactly the x1 function, and this single statement will get you the poles and zeros and poles and function. So there is a function called transfer function to zero poles form. The numerator and denominator polynomials, and you get the, so these are the 3 zeros and these are the 2 poles, right? Now, MATLAB functions to plot poles and zeros. There are several functions in MATLAB to plot poles and zeros. The simplest one is the Z plane, where you give the zeros and poles, it will simply plot that. Then Z plane plot, and both the zeros and poles should be given in vector form. We can try this out. I think we can easily do that. We can get into MATLAB. Okay, other functions are z-plane plot and pz map, pz plot, and transfer function to zero poles and gain, right? Let us now look into. I mean, we'll try out this MATLAB function later on. We'll come to this next one. So, starting with the simplest possible function, which is the delta function, which is defined only at n is equal to 0, and it is 0 at all other values of n. So, if you take the Z transform, will get you 1, and the region of convergence is the entire Z. And the second function is the unit step, which will be defined anyway it is 0 to infinity the raised to minus n, because the first value un is equal to 1 for n is equal to 0. So you will get it in this form, either in this form 1 by 1 minus z raised to minus 1 or z by z raised to minus 1. And the region of convergence is absolute value of z greater than. So this sequence will converge when value of z is greater than 1, right? Then if you multiply, I mean, so this is called the unit ramp sequence. So NUN, similarly, you will get this function, z raised to minus 1 by and so on. Then n squared, you have this. Then a raised to n into un, where a is less than 1, only then it will converge for this condition. So it will get a value of z by z raised to minus 1, and the region of convergence is absolute value of z greater than a. Now we have n a raised to n un, so it has this assumption and so on. Normally this z transform and its function, original function, they exist in pairs for a particular value of ROC, definition of ROC. So we have all this. So we show this double-sided arrow. So if you take the Z transform, you'll get this expression, and if you take the inverse transform, you'll get back this original sequence, discrete time sequence. So this is the Z transform, I mean, frequency domain representation of this time domain function. So these are the other expressions. In fact, we can generate all these expressions using a MATLAB function in the symbolic math toolbox called Z-trans. We'll come to that point later on. And we'll look into some of the interesting properties of unilateral Z transforms and linearity. That means if two functions, scaling and summation, will get you the same functions scaled at some values a and b, right? Two functions, x of n and b of y of n, they will generate ax of z plus z. Then convolution sum. The convolution in time domain will result in, this is convolution expression, will result in multiplication of transforms in the frequency domain and vice versa. Then time shifting causal signal, time shifting will result into z raised to minus n into x of s, right? X of n minus n is the transform you will get this one. Then time shifting in non-causal case, we'll get a much more complex expression. X of n minus capital N will be this lengthy expression. Okay. Then time reversal in the case, if x of n results in x of z, x of minus n will result in x of z raised to minus 1. This will be obtained, or this can be proved from fundamentals, starting with x of n and substituting for x of minus n, you get into this expression. Then multiplication by n x of n is equal to taking the transform of x of z and multiplying it by minus. Multiplying by n square, similarly we have another expression. Then multiplication by an exponential sequence, you get this. Then finite duration difference. So if you have x of n and x of n minus 1, you get this expression as the finite difference. Then accumulation, you get this expression, initial value. So the initial value of x of n tending to 0 will be obtained by taking the limit z tending to infinity x of z This is something similar to what is there in the case of Laplace transform also, initial value theorem and final value. Something similar. In final value theorem, the final value of x of n tending to infinity or x of infinity is equal to limiting value of z into minus 1 multiplied by x of z and substituting z to 1. Let us consider another example where the region of convergence and the transform of a causal sequence as we obtained. This is delta n into minus 2 delta n minus 2, 3 delta n minus 4, 5 delta n minus 5, and so on, right? So this sequence can be represented as x of 0, 1, x of 1, 0, and so on. So we know that this is a question. We use apply this summation and you get the x of z. And the region of convergence is, it will converge for all values of z except z is equal to 0, because when z becomes 0, this becomes infinite. So it will not converge for all values of z except z is equal to 0. Then the third example is a transform of this case. You apply the rule. You can write un minus 4 is it is a signal having only 4 delta signals, delta n minus 1 plus delta n minus 2 and delta n minus 3. So this is the expression of the z, and the entire z plane except z is equal to 0. So it will converge for all values of z except z is equal to 0. So that is the region of convergence. So whenever you specify z transform, we must also invariably specify the region of convergence. Otherwise, it doesn't convey any useful meaning. Then initial value, final value theorems, we can calculate the values of a function, initial value as well as final value, is applying the equations we have seen earlier in the previous slide. Okay, now we will look into inverse Z transform. Inverse Z transform definition is x of n can be obtained by taking the inverse transform of x of z, which is equal to 1 by 2 pi j. This is the most common definition of inverse transform from the Z transform. X of z, it's a contour integration. X of z into z raised to minus z raised to n minus 1 dz, where closed integral denotes integration around the circle of radius. Z absolute value of z is equal to r in a counterclockwise direction. The direct computation of inverse Z transform is seldom used. This is a direct computation, but it is seldom used. Unless you can calculate this integral, it will be difficult to get back the original sequence. So these are the 4 methods of computing inverse Z transform once you know the Z transform and the corresponding region of convergence. One is the power series method or long division method. Second one is the partial fraction expansion method. And third one is the complex inversion integral method or the residue method. And the final one is the convolution integral method. This is the complex inversion integral method or the residue method, which we have seen the first equation. Right? Let us try them out. Using the power series expansion, we can find the inverse Z transform of x of z is equal to z by 2z square minus 3z plus 1. So by long division, if you do z by 2z square by minus 3z plus 1, we get into this form. 0 plus 1 by 2 z raised to minus 1 plus 3 by 4 z raised to minus 2 plus 7 by 8 z raised to minus 3 plus 15 by 16 z raised to minus 4 plus the next term will be 31 by 32 z raised to minus 5 and so on and so forth. It is an infinite series but it is converged. So we can write x of z as n summation n 0 tending from 0 to infinity 2 raised to n minus 1, which is this part, the numerator part, by 2 raised to n, right? In every case, this equation holds good, and you have z raised to n. Substitute n is equal to 0, you get 2 raised to 0 minus 1 is 1. I mean, 2 raised to 0 is 1, 1 minus 1 is 0. So this you get the first term. So when n is equal to 1, it is 2 raised to 1, it is 2, 2 minus 1 is 1 by 2 into z raised to minus 1, and so on. So all the terms in this infinite series can be generated or expressed in this infinite sum, right? And if you do that, removing this z raised to minus n, whatever remains is the signal part. So if you divide 2 raised to n minus 1 by 2 raised to n, you get 1 minus 2 raised to minus n, and you add it u raised to n unit step to show that it is a right-sided sequence. So obviously we say that this this sequence has a region of convergence where z is not equal to 0. So it is region of convergence in entire z plane except z is not equal to 0. So this is the x of n we are going to get. Now we will also consider another example here. This we have seen. Yeah. Another example is find the inverse z transform of x of z. Because again by long division, region of convergence, where the region of convergence is defined as z greater than absolute value of z is greater than 0. We have x of z is equal to this z raised to minus 1. So again we do the long division. We can express this function as this. This method is partial fraction expansion. The first one is long division. This is obtained by partial fraction expansion. So you get a confined, a closed form expression for x of n. So we can represent it as 1 by 3 into z raised to minus 1 into z raised to 1 by 3. So you can write x of z by z is equal to 1 by 3. You just take this to the left side. So we get this. Now this can be equated as a by z raised to minus 1 plus b by z raised to minus 1. So this can be represented, x by z by z can be represented 1 by 2 into 1 by z raised to minus 1 minus 1 by 2 into 1 by z raised to 1 by 2 into 1 by z minus 1 by 3. So again taking back the z to the right side, x of z will be 1 by 2 into 1 by 2 is taken out, z by z raised to minus 1 minus z by z minus 1 by 3, and the region of convergence is z is greater than 1. So thus we get, you take the inverse transform of inverse z transform of these two expressions. This will get you un, and this will get you 1 by 3 of 1 by 3 in to the power n un, the region of convergences. So we have seen that. Now we can see the z transform using, we can generate the z transform using MATLAB. We will do that. First we clear the screen, close all variables, clear all variables. Then this we will evoke the symbolic math toolbox, sims a, b, and omega 0 as well as n. These are the 4 variables, symbolic variables. And the first command is display the sequence x of n, right? Then we can define the input sequence as x of n is equal to sine omega 0 n, right? And the z transform of that is obtained by, as I said, there is a function in MATLAB which is applicable to symbolic math toolbox also. You write x of n x1, which is the z transform of x, small x1, trans of x of n, x1, right? Then you display that. This is a simple program. I think we can run this out. Mm. There is an error. Yeah. Then we can just type x of 1 is equal to z trans of x of 1. We simply give this we have already seen, right? When x of n is cos n cosine of omega 0 n, z transfer will be z into z minus. So this is actually given in the slides, the previous slide. When we consider, this is the right. So we can write it in this form. Okay. Then, in fact, we can do the inverse also. So I write the inverse answer as inverse trans of x1, right? You got back the original statement, right? This one and this one are same. We will continue with the presentation. We'll also see how to plot the poles and zeros. I think we can do that right away. Suppose I have a set of zeros like 1, it's a multiple 0 and right, it has to be a column like that. So write it as similarly minus 1, 0.5 and maybe a pole at 0, so -2, right? And so you can have this Z line comma P. This is the pole zero plot. You can see that the poles are denoted by this symbols crosshairs. One is at -2. This is at -2. This is at -1. This is at -0.5. Whereas the zeros are at, there is a multiple pole at x. Z is equal to 1. That is shown by this number 2. There are a multiple pole and 1 0 at 0 itself at the origin, right? Similarly, we can use the other functions also, which we have discussed. I think I have also mentioned some other functions, right? Z line plot, Z map, and so on. So in the case of Z map function, we have to represent the transfer function as a numerator and denominator instead of poles and zeros, right? And we also have the function PZ plot, where a particular system, discrete system is defined in the state space model. You can ask the system to plot it. All these things you can get help at the MATLAB window by just typing the function with help, right? So if you want to get the details how to invoke the function and get the method is user friendly. Whole zero map of linear systems and how it has to be run. It is actually a case for a random state space model. System is defined by this plot. Okay. So we were calculating the inverse is a transform of typical is a transform function. We have considered these two. Complex integration, you have to, complex inversion integral method is the more tedious method in this four. You can also use convolution integral. As I said, convolution in time domain results in multiplication in frequency domain or the Z domain. The transforms are multiplied when two signals are convolved in time domain, right? In such cases, you can use the convolution integral property, convolution property of Z transforms to get back the original. You express a complex function x of z into two products, separable products, and you take the convolution integral so that you get the original. This is another small MATLAB script to evoke the inverse act. We have seen that, right? Here, these are the symbols n and omega 0. Find xn as n plus 1. It's a typical signal. Okay, n plus 1 un. And the input sequence, and if you can also run this. Get back to this. Then x1 is defined as plus 1. Okay. Now you can calculate in the transform of that as equal to, is the trans of 1. You get the signal, and to get back the original sequence, the use inverse is a fact of x1. Get back here. But this is different from the original x1. So what you can do is you can simplify of 1 1 and put it in x of 1 1, right? There is some issue with this. We are supposed to get back the original n plus 1, right? So summing up, we have considered the following in this tutorial session. We have considered Z transform as a mathematical tool for signal and image processing. In the case of image processing, we have to take all images are two-dimensional. A picture is nothing but an intensity variation. So there are two independent variables, x and y. Okay. And the intensity is assessed as a black and white picture is assessed, can be assessed as a two-dimensional matrix x with x and y as independent variables, and the intensity is the dependent variable. So in such cases, in the case of image processing, you have to consider two-dimensional is a transform. And we also consider two mathematical definitions for two-sided and single-sided Isor transforms. Is applied to unilateral and bilateral sequences. Then we also considered the region of convergence, or the region or the values of Z in the Z plane at which x of z converge, which is actually called the region of convergence. And we have also seen certain properties of region of convergence. And finally, we have considered the Z transform. Z transform is the technique to get back the original time domain sequence from the frequency domain representation, which is nothing but the x of z function, Z transform. So these are the summary, and these are the textbooks which are mentioned in your syllabus. LNV, Oppenheim, and Minsky, Signals and Systems, which is considered to be a classic in this topic. Then we have Simon Hacking, Signals and Systems, Anand Kumar. This book, the third book, contains a lot of worked out examples, so it will get helpful you try to solve the problem. So this is a highly math intensive course. Probably this book will help you to solve almost all the problems that can arise in the exam. Then Lathy, Principles of Signal Processing Unit System, then Gurung. The last textbook mentioned in the syllabus is Roger is Seymour, Signals and Systems. And there are several other textbooks. You can refer to all of them. And you can use MATLAB as well as Mathematica to visualize the concepts. Okay, both of these have beautiful, functions using which you can, get to know the meaning of the concepts quite easily. It's English. So now the session is open for questions.
ഈ ടോപ്പിക്കിൽ നിന്ന് നമുക്ക് K2-ന് സ്ഥിരമായിട്ട് റിപ്പീറ്റഡ് ആയിട്ട് വരുന്ന ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ഏതെങ്കിലും സജസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാനുണ്ടോ? സ്ഥിരമായിട്ട് ചോദിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നു.
Okay, that itself is a good question. Right. Okay. I'll go back. And in fact, one of the most frequent, most often asked questions is with respect to the properties of Z transforms, and using those properties, how to obtain x of z and x of x, right? Sometimes you are given questions in the form, right? There are 2-3 functions. Maybe either applying any of these 12 or 14 properties of the Z transform, you are asked to find out the x of z function, right? The Z transform function. Similarly, using the properties itself, we can get back the original sequence also. Such kind of questions can be asked in the 4-marks case. Then sometimes you are asked to plot the poles and zeros of a x of z by expressing it as a numerator polynomial divided by a denominator polynomial, a rational form. That is another set of questions you can express, which I have done here, right? When it appears to be a numerator polynomial, we can express it as a numerator divided by denominator, and finally obtain the poles and zeros by solving the numerator polynomial and denominator polynomial by equating them and solve for them, right? Such kind of questions are also possible in the exam. Then finally, so this part is much more complex, right? Find the Z transform of a sequence. A given sequence is given. These are simple questions, but there can be more complex questions, like you have a sequence and it's a product of 1 or 2 subsequences. Then you are asked to find out the Z transform of that product. So you can use either the initial method, or you can go by the fundamental definition of the transform, be it unilateral or bilateral. You apply the equation x of n into z raised to minus n, summated over either n running from minus infinity to plus infinity, or n running from 0 to infinity. So that's what certain types of questions are from that part, right? And finally, there are 3 questions by which you are asked to find out the inverse Z transform using any of these 4 techniques: our series method, long division, partial fraction expansion, complex inversion integral method, taking the closed integral method, right? 1 by 2 pi j closed integral x of z into z raised to minus z raised to n minus 1 and all that, right? then finally the convolution integral method also can be applied, right? These are the possible questions one can expect in the university exam. The most tedious will be the
Sir,
final one, converting x of z into x of n. Taking the inverse or computing the inverse z transform, or obtaining the time domain representation from the frequency domain. Another interesting question is, suppose you have a system, okay, system with h of n as the impulse response. Then you have a signal x of n applied to that system, right? In such a situation, you can use the convolution integral property. So output of this system will be h of n convolution x of n. So that is y of n. So we can get y of z by taking the product of x of z and h of z. Okay, transform of both these components, input and the system transfer function, and taking the product. Then if you are asked to calculate y of n, what you do is you first compute x of z, which can be easily done by x of z into x of z, then take the inverse of that product. So such cases also, such problems are also can be expected in the university exam. Obtaining the output of a system for a possible and a given impulse response. Impulse response are represented by h of n, which is the response of the system when x of n is equated to the impulse function delta n, right? Impulse response is nothing but the response of a linear time invariant system to impulse function delta n, right? So if you know the impulse response and the input sequence, you can always calculate the output sequence either by convolution integral, convolution sum, discrete time case, convolution sum. Also by this simple method, by taking the transform, individual transforms of x of n and h of n, take the product and take the inverse transform. That will get you y of n. So such kind of questions can also be expected, because such things are always there in control system theory. Discrete time control systems, all these signals are discretized, right? They are x and x, h of n and all that. So such a kind of type of questions can also be expected in the lengthy arc, right? Questions having 10 marks or more. Obtain the system response y of n given an input sequence x of n is applied to the particular system with a impulse response of h of n, right? So such type of questions also can be expected in the university.
So now we have some questions from the students.
Yeah.
Let me. Okay. First from Angela. What do you mean by support in ROC properties?
See, support is actually those values of n for which x of n is defined. So suppose you have an impulse function delta of n. In the case of delta of n, it is defined only at n is equal to 0. It is 0 for all other values, right? So it can be called a finite support signal. Whereas in the case of u of n, it is an infinite support sequence and right-sided, because u of n is defined for all values of x of all values of n for which n is equal to 0 or greater than 0, right? It is 1 for n is equal to 0, n is equal to 1, n is equal to 2, and so on till infinity, right? So in a general case, for example, you have considered another signal in this case, u of n minus u of n minus 3. It is a finite support system in the sense that this signal x of n, x of n is equal to u of n minus u of n minus 3 can exist only at n is equal to 0, n is equal to 1, n is equal to 2. Because you are subtracting u of n minus 3 from u of n, right? So all other values will be cancelled. So it has a finite support, and that support is between n is equal to 0, less than, greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 2. So we will have 1, 2, only 3 values are there in the sequence, u of n minus u of n minus 3, right? So region of convergence also depends on the support of the original sequence of n. So it precisely points towards those values of n for which x of n exists. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah.
So, one more question from Ammu Manoharan. It is what are the applications of ZT in real scenarios?
It's a transform, as I said, it is a very convenient method to obtain the response of a linear time invariant discrete type system, provided you know the impulse response of the system and the input sequence, right? If you have xn and hn, you can compute yn using x of, it's a transform of x of n and h of n. So that is one of the major applications of Z transform. We are trying to visualize the signal in the frequency domain, all signals and their responses. So you are shifting from the time domain to the frequency domain. So for obtaining the system response, you can use Z transform. The method is you multiply responses. It's a transform of the input signal, which is x of n, which will get you x of z, and you take it's a transform of the impulse response h of n, which will get you h of z. You multiply these two, you will get the transform of the output, which is y of z. And if you want to get back y of n, what you do is based on the R of region of convergence, you take the inverse transform, and you will get y of n very easy. This is one typical application of Z transform, and for that matter, any other transform as well, right? Only thing is, for some of the cases of n, some of the values of n, this transform does not converge, it doesn't have a region of convergence. Such cases, Z transform is said to be non-existent. That's the only thing. So one major application is obtaining system responses for linear time invariant discrete time systems. You can use the transforms very conveniently. Then you can also obtain the initial values of signals. If you know the transform, you have those initial value and final value theorem, right? So these are the typical applications. You can get to know the initial value x of 0, so as the final value x of is infinity, right? Using the transform properties. If you know x of z, you can easily calculate x of 0 as well as x of infinity, the initial value and the final value. These are other typical applications, right? Yeah.
Okay, so one more question from 3 participants, the same question.
Yeah.
How to find stability of a system by considering poles and zeros?
So by stability, we usually mean the bounded input, bounded output. So looking at the position of the poles and zeros, you can be stability. For example, the poles are say in the case of Laplace transform, we say that the poles lie on the left hand side of the imaginary axis, j omega axis. The system is said to be stable. The poles of the system, right? Similarly, in the case of Z transform, if it is if it is lying outside the unit circle, it is said to be stable in the case of discrete time system. Similarly, depending on the region of convergence and the positions of the poles, we can predict whether the system, discrete time system.
Sir, I think we have one last question. Sir, how do we analyze if the incoming signal is a mixture of discrete time and continuous time?
Yeah, the best. This is one of the excellent questions. what you can do is we can sample the mixed signal, mixed type signal. So it contains both analog signal as well as discrete time signal. You can sample it and take the discrete time transform, Fourier transform or Risser transform. Since it contains both analog and digital signal, it is easier to treat it as a discrete time signal after sampling it properly, following the Nyquist sampling rate, Nyquist-Shannon sampling rate. Convert it into a discrete time sample. Take the discrete time sample and apply the discrete transforms. It's the only way to do that, because one condition of finite time transform is that the signal has to be bounded. The Dirichlet's conditions, etc., has to be satisfied. So when you sample it properly and quantize it, we can overcome that and we can process the signal in the discrete time domain. Yeah. Another thing is, right now, another important method is gaining importance. One thing, signal is you can even filter. Whenever you consider a filter, we are doing the processing in the frequency domain, right? But now there are, with the advent of more faster processors and analog signal processing elements, you can do the processing or filtering in time domain itself. So in such a case, it could be possible to process the signal as it is, a mixed type signal, mixed analog and digital signal, into two separate channels by isolating the discrete time part and the continuous time part, filtering through a time domain filter, and then process it, and finally you combine it to get back the original processed signal. So that is also possible, but that is more intensive in the case of the hardware complexities concerned. So the easiest way is to digitize it and process it in the discrete time.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, we have covered. I think we have covered all the questions, important questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have covered such an important portion in a limited time.
Yeah.
Yeah, sir. Very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address this 100+ students from APJ Abdul Kalam Technological University, that too at the time of the lockdown following the COVID-19 epidemic. I wish you all good luck. Wish you all good luck in the forthcoming exams and wonderful careers. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.